few weeks ago, we covered the airlines and hotel programs that we expect to have the most point sales and transfer bonuses in 2025. But what about the airlines that rarely, if ever, have these types of promotions? That is what we are covering in today's video. These airlines rarely ever have sales or transfer bonuses. So if you find the flight deals mentioned in this video, go ahead and book them. The first airline that we're going to cover that almost never puts points on sale and rarely has a transfer bonus is Singapore Airlines. From all of the transfer bonus tracking that we've done over the last couple of years, it looks like they only ran one transfer bonus, and that was with American Express at the end of 2023. Does not look like they ran anything in 2024. So the moral of the story is, if you find some good saver space with Singapore Airlines, go ahead and book it. Don't hold out for some kind of transfer bonus or point sale. It's probably not going to happen. Singapore Airlines is obviously most used for flights to and from Singapore and any of the other connecting flights into the Southeast Asia or South Asia region. There's also a Fifth Freedom flight we tend to put a lot of clients on that goes from Los Angeles over to Narita, Tokyo. If you are interested in flying the Singapore Suites, the most common route that we find there is from Singapore over to Sydney in Australia. Unfortunately, they don't operate the Singapore Suites to and from the United States anymore. It used to be available from JFK to Frankfurt, which is another popular Fifth Freedom flight with Singapore, but unfortunately they ended that route with the A380. So if you want to fly Singapore Suites, you're going to have to go from Singapore either into Australia or Hong Kong or India or one of the other routes that they fly. But for today's example, I want to do something a little bit different. Singapore Airlines is great because they can include the positioning flight for you if you are connecting through Singapore into another city in Southeast Asia. So let's start with saying that we want to fly from somewhere like Newark over to Singapore just to see what's available. If you are based in the United States, then connecting into Singapore Airlines, you have 5 choices. You could either position to Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, JFK, or Newark. They have since ended the route with Houston, unfortunately, so you've only got those other 5 airports to position to now. So let's say you're based in Newark and you want to fly over to Singapore, and you want to do this sometime in November 2025. Let's just search for one person in business class for now. And here we see that there are some different advantage rates where it's 143.5 thousand points per person one way to get from Newark through Singapore, which is a little bit steep. But if we are flexible with our dates and can fly the last week of November, then that price is only 111.5 thousand points for that exact same route. So with Singapore Airlines, the name of the game is if you can be a little bit flexible with your dates, you can find saver space that way. Singapore Airlines is also great because they tend to have tons of availability. Even if you need 4 or more seats on the same flight, they tend to be a little bit pricier if you have to book one of those advantage rates. But if you have no other way to get to or from Asia and you have specific dates you need to fly and you really want to do business class, Singapore Airlines tends to be my go-to for that situation. It's also nice because let's say that you don't just want to go to Singapore, you want to go somewhere like Bali, where there's no direct flights to or from the United States. We can change our filter to say Newark over to Bali for one of these dates, let's say November 26th. In business class for one adult, then click search, and we'll see that from Newark through Singapore into Bali is still the same price, 111.5 thousand miles for the saver space. You have multiple flights that you can choose from, so if you'd like, you can spend a day in Singapore before continuing on. Or if you wanted to extend your time in Singapore, you can get a complimentary stopover there with round-trip saver space or one-way advantage rates. So lots of different things that you can do with Singapore Airlines, and if you want to do any of them, I would suggest go ahead and book those flights, transfer those points as soon as you find availability for the dates you want, because the likelihood of getting a point sale or a transfer bonus with Singapore Airlines based off of historical data is really low. If you are enjoying these types of videos, please let me know. Click that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel for even more points and miles tips every week. Next up, let's talk about a program that rarely puts points on sale or has transfer bonuses, but how you can get around that. The next airline that I want to talk about where they almost never have points on sale and rarely ever have transfer bonuses is Turkish Airlines.
based off of the tracking spreadsheet, they've only run one transfer bonus. It was with Citi. It was a pretty good transfer bonus for 50% transfer bonus in June of 2024. But other than that, not really any point sales, not really any transfer bonuses. I'm not too sad about it because Turkish Airlines is a ghost of a shell of what it once was. There's so many great things to be said about Turkish Airlines. First of all, the catering is amazing. I love their flight product. And fun fact, Istanbul is the most connected international airport in the world. It's kind of located at the center of the world, so they've got so many different ways to connect into the United States, whether it's with Seattle, San Francisco, Denver, Chicago, Dallas, Houston, Atlanta, Miami. There's a lot of airports where you can fly direct from the United States into Istanbul with Turkish Airlines. It's also one of the better ways to connect into Eastern Europe, into Africa, into the Middle East, Asia. It connects pretty much everywhere. But the downsides with Turkish Airlines is that it doesn't have a lot of transfer partners. You could transfer Bilt points. Those transfer instantly. You could transfer in Capital One miles, which could take up to a day, or you could transfer in Citi Thank You points, which could take 1 to 2 days. Also worth noting, the Turkish Airlines website is not my favorite, to say the least. If you're going to make a Turkish Airline frequent flyer account, make sure that you set up your PIN to have 6 numbers. They can't be repeating digits. They have to be all unique. It has to all be 6 numbers. There's a whole bunch of rules around that. And then if you want to do an award ticket, you just click on award ticket, buy with miles. This process of finding award space on Turkish used to be a lot more complicated. They've made it easier now because it works on seats.aero. So you can search for flights from North America over to Istanbul. Even though Turkish Airlines is one of the best connected airports in the world, and you could easily fly with one stop from somewhere like the United States through Istanbul into Africa, the Middle East, India, all of those. It's not as good as it once was. You used to be able to book tons of sweet spots. Like you could get from the US through Istanbul into Greece for about 45,000 points. You could get to Dubai for 60,000 points or something great like that. But they devalued their award chart in early 2024, and now it's additive. So if you wanted to fly through Turkish, like for this example, on this 1 mile at a time article, how would you calculate award tickets to fly from Dubai through Istanbul into London? They take the number of miles you would have to fly from Dubai plus the number of miles from Istanbul to London, and then they add all that together. So a lot of the sweet spots that used to be region-based are no longer existing. All that to be said, should you use Turkish Airlines? What should you use them for? If you have a bunch of Turkish Airlines miles stuck in the program, what do? I would only use this to fly to or from Istanbul. There's a lot of ways to do this. If you find saver space, it should be about 65,000 points. Like let's say that you want to do this particular flight from Houston over to Istanbul for 65,000 points. On December 9, you would go to the Turkish Airlines website and say that you want to search from Houston over to Istanbul on December 9 of 2025. And we're just going to say 1 passenger in business class for now. And so we see there is some saver space left where you can go from Houston to Istanbul for 65,000 points per person in business class, which is a much better deal than 55,000 in economy. But instead of doing this, my recommendation, if you want to fly on Turkish Airlines, which is a fantastic product, I would instead just try to search for this on Air Canada instead and see if they have this available. It looks like this particular flight from Houston to Istanbul on December 9 is not available with Air Canada. But if you're flexible or you can do different positioning flights, Detroit to Istanbul is available for 70,000 points, or JFK to Istanbul is available for 70,000 points with Air Canada. So it's only 5,000 points more. Their website is so much easier to use, especially if you're booking for multiple people. You have more transfer partners with Air Canada, where Amex, Bilt, Capital One, and Chase will all transfer roughly instantly over to Air Canada. They tend to have more point sales, a lot more point sales. They tend to have more transfer bonuses, especially with Chase over to Air Canada. So if you are looking to fly into Istanbul or do the Turkish Airlines program, I would say don't worry too much about the fact that Turkish Airlines rarely puts their points on sale and rarely has transfer bonuses. You can get around a lot of that by using the Aeroplan program. And like we've mentioned in past videos, you can also connect through Turkey into other regions like Serbia, Greece, Middle East, Africa, lots of other places. And Air Canada's zoning rules make it a lot more favorable, so you might actually end up saving some points that way.
If you have a specific destination that you would like to visit, you can request a free, personalized tutorial by going to geobreezetravel.com/request. These tutorials are specific to your exact airports, dates, and destinations, and we produce one free tutorial every week through the GeoBreeze Travel newsletter, which is also free. One of the trickier regions to travel to with points is Oceania, and this next airline is where we tend to find a lot of the sweet spots for this particularly tricky region.
All right, the next airline that I want to talk through where they very rarely put points on sale and very rarely run transfer bonuses is going to be Qantas. In the last 2 years, they ran one transfer bonus. It was 20% from Capital One over to Qantas, and that was around August of 2024. But outside of that, no points on sale, no transfer bonuses. So if you find something good with Qantas, I would suggest go ahead and transfer points over and book it. With Qantas, pretty much everything other than Chase and Bilt will transfer over. You could transfer over Amex points, Capital One points, and Citi points, though Capital One points do take a little bit longer to transfer over. The network of Qantas is pretty good, especially if you are Australian or fly a lot between Australia and Asia or New Zealand or even the United States. But I want to talk about some different routes that would probably be more useful for people in the United States today. So Qantas is supported by Seats.aero, which makes it easier to find flights. And the actual hard product for Qantas Airlines, I hear is fantastic. I hear great things about it. I have not been able to book it in business class because it is very, very difficult to find award space. I flew them in economy once upon a time forever ago before points and miles, but I have not actually experienced their business class product because if you want to try to find award space from North America over to Oceania in business class, it says there's a few different flights from Honolulu over to Sydney, but these aren't operated by Qantas. If we want the Qantas operated ones, we see some flights from Los Angeles over to Tahiti, and then here's one in April from San Francisco to Sydney, Los Angeles over to Melbourne, and I'm recording this on December 27, so this looks like a last-minute flight that's available for 108.4 thousand points plus $169. But the thing is, whenever I search for these on Qantas's website, like this one, for example, Los Angeles over to Melbourne on December 28th, I don't actually see that availability. Everything here is just in economy. So whenever I see these business class award alerts for Qantas, I don't know what's going on with Seats.aero, but be warned that it's usually phantom space. And that can happen with other routes as well. Like I searched for Los Angeles over to Papeete on November 25th, which it looks like there was supposed to be some award space for 68,000 points. But once again, all I'm seeing is economy here. So what would we even use Qantas points for? Well, I wouldn't use it to book Qantas. I would use it to book one of their other airline partners. Like, for example, if you are interested in going to Fiji, we tend to have pretty good luck with finding clients flights from the West Coast over to Fiji with Fiji Airways by using Qantas points. For example, let's look for something in 2025. And here we see something from Los Angeles over to Nandi on December 1st. So we would go back to the Qantas website from LAX over to NAN on December 1st, 2025 for one adult in business class, and click search flights. And here we do see that business class award ticket from Los Angeles over to Fiji for 82,000 points plus $28 in taxes and fees per person one way. So if this is something that you would be interested in booking and you see the award availability for it with Seats.aero or any of the other aggregator tools, I would go ahead and book it. Don't hold out for a point sale or a transfer bonus because it's going to be very rare with Qantas. And especially if you find one of the rare flights over to New Zealand, which can happen sometimes too. I've booked this for about 95,000 points from San Francisco through Fiji into Auckland. There's not a ton of award space and you have to be pretty flexible on dates, but if you do see one of these, then I would go ahead and book it rather than hoping for a transfer bonus that may or may not ever come.
If you are in the market for a new card to earn more points, but you are not sure what card to get, we offer free credit card consultations at geobreezetravel.com/consultations. We will send you personalized recommendations based on your particular goals, budget, and lifestyle. And with this next airline, you will need a specific kind of transferable currency to book these flight deals, which often go under the radar.
All right, this next airline, I don't have any record of any points going on sale for them or any transfer bonuses in the last 2 years, and that is EVA Air. I think this one's really underrated, and not a lot of people talk about it because there's not a lot of press coverage for transfer bonuses or anything else like that. The only transfer partners are Capital One and Citi, and it's not instantaneous, and it's mostly just used to fly to or from Taipei and connecting through there into other Asian cities. Also, people don't tend to mention it very often because it's not supported by Seats.Aero or Roam or any of the other aggregators. So it tends to fly under the radar a lot. But that does not mean you should skip out on EVA Air, because even though there's not an easy award calendar or anything to find award space, if you are booking far enough in the calendar, like here I'm searching for November 2025, you can probably just start clicking on dates for routes that are direct to Taipei, and you will probably hit something. Like here I searched from Chicago over to Taipei around November 19, and it says there's availability on November 17, 18, 19, and 20th, but not on the 21st. And then if I say, okay, let's go ahead and see how much this particular flight is going to cost in points and miles, it's only 80,000 points per person for this direct flight. EVA also tends to go under the radar these days because even if I just search USA over to Taipei sometime in October or November, with partner flights on EVA, they have severely cut down on the amount of partner award space with different partners like United or Air Canada. So even though this is looking like it's widely available on EVA's own website, it's not going to show up with a lot of the partners like United or Air Canada. All that to say, if you are interested in flying on EVA Air from one of these US cities that it flies direct to, whether it's JFK, Chicago, Houston, San Francisco, Los Angeles, or Seattle, or even Vancouver and Toronto if you're Canadian. If you are interested in flying from any of those cities over to Taiwan or connecting through Taiwan into Asia from there, I highly recommend checking out EVA's own website. It's a little bit more tedious and takes a few more clicks to find award space, but like I mentioned, you'll find a lot of stuff there that's not available on any other partners. And because it's not available on aggregation sites, it's less likely to get scooped up by other people in the points and miles community. That's my little bit on EVA. You're not going to find points on sale. You're not going to find very many transfer bonuses. You're not going to have a ton of options for transfer partners. It's just Capital One and Citi. And you're not going to find them on Seats.Aero. But if you look on their own website, you will find some pretty good award space, and the pricing is not too bad at all because it's only 80,000 points. And I would rate this as probably top 5 business class for me. And they give you pajamas in business class. And I wear these pajamas all the time.
If you are interested in leveling up your points and miles game and getting even more free trips and upgrades, we have a couple of options for you. If you have a trip coming up where you would like to request a fast-track personalized tutorial, check out patreon.com/geobreezetravel. Through the Patreon, we can prepare step-by-step tutorials for you and also answer any questions that you have in our monthly live group coaching. And if you are looking to get even more free travel with points, and you are a business owner or individual who spends more than $100,000 per year on expenses, we typically save our clients somewhere between $30,000 and $60,000 in travel in the first 6 to 12 months of working with our one-on-one points portfolio management service. If that sounds like something that you would be interested in, book a free intro chat with us at geobreezetravel.com/intro call to learn more. Okay, let's talk about a more advanced airline program to use. They don't have any point sales, they don't have transfer bonuses, they have tons of weird rules for how to find award flights and transfer points in. So why do people still go crazy for the ANA redemptions? Here's why.
And the last airline that I want to discuss today, which has had no point sales in the last 2 years, no transfer bonuses, but still very worth learning about and people go crazy over it, is ANA. ANA is often rated as one of the best business class, and if you can find it, one of the best first class options to fly in the sky. It's often used to fly into Tokyo or other cities in Japan, and from the United States, you can fly this from JFK, IAD, Chicago, Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, or Houston. So you'll need to position to one of those airports if you want to fly this over to Japan. However, the best way to find availability for this, if you are open to it, is probably to position to Mexico City. Alternatively, Honolulu tends to have pretty good availability as well, but you are going to find so much more availability out of Mexico than the United States. There's a lot of availability from Mexico over into Tokyo. The tricky thing about ANA, other than the fact that they don't put points on sale and they don't have transfer bonuses, is they don't really have transfer partners either. The only option you've got is American Express membership rewards points, and they don't transfer instantly. It's going to take 2 or 3 days for the points to transfer over from Amex to ANA, and you just have to pray during that time that the award space does not dry up. So what I would do is, personally, I would only move over ANA if you see a lot of availability within a cluster of dates where you can have a backup option in case your first date choice goes away. Like here, I'm searching for USA or Mexico over to Tokyo in November or December 2025, and then I've listed the operating carrier as NH. That's the code that you'll need for ANA operated flights. And here, we're looking for direct flights highlighted in green. And with United, it's going to be 110,000 points, but we're going to pay about half of that if it's booked through ANA. There's 2 dates where you could fly from Mexico into Narita, or 1 date from Los Angeles into Narita. And then on the way back, there's a few more dates where you could fly from Narita to Mexico City in mid to late November, but nothing to the United States. So like I mentioned, if you are really set on getting to fly this, taking a positioning flight into Mexico City is going to help you find a ton more availability. Because if you're willing to do that, you will be handsomely rewarded. Because round trip from Mexico to Tokyo for this direct flight, which is about 15 hours on the way there, 12 hours on the way back, for business class, it is a total of 105,000 points, plus about $400 in taxes and fees for one passenger. And that is round trip. So it's about 52.5 thousand miles each way in ANA business class. Now, if you want to book something like this, you have to be able to find round trip availability, which is another one of those things that just makes ANA all that much tougher to find. You need to either do round trip, or you can do multiple or mixed cities where you're taking an open jaw or something like that. ANA is also very popular for people who want to do the around the world flight rules, where there's tons of articles on this, but basically most people end up spending about 125,000 points for an around the world trip where you can do up to 8 flights in business class if you book this through ANA. It's quite difficult to book, so we have an entire podcast episode on how to do this with ANA. This is one of those where it's definitely more of an advanced booking, and it is made a little bit more challenging by the fact that only Amex points can transfer there. It doesn't transfer instantaneously. I wish they would just sell their points so you could buy them whenever you find these great flight deals, but that's just not the case. They don't put their points on sale very often, and they don't ever have transfer bonuses from ANA. Despite all that, the ANA around the world flight is still a fantastic deal. If you can find round trip award availability between the US or Mexico over to Tokyo, that's a fantastic deal in business or first class. And they have lots of other sweet spots like to Europe for round trip 88,000 points as well.
I hope you found those tutorials useful. Suggestions for future topics are always welcome. In the meantime, if you enjoyed these tutorials, I think you will enjoy this video next.